In this video, we're going to be looking at the basics of Excel Part 1. And to start with, we're going to discuss some vocabulary that will help us build on concepts and do more inside of an Excel worksheet or workbook. So the first word we want to look at is the word cell. And a cell just represents each of these items, these rectangles inside of the Excel worksheet. And so you can click on a cell and it will highlight it. Notice this 705.5 is also going to show up in this bar right here, the formula bar, and that's where you can edit what is written inside of this cell if you wanted to change it. But again, you can click on a cell and it is highlighted. The next vocabulary word would be a row, and a row is just going to be a horizontal array of cells. And so, for instance, if we want to select row 4, looking on the left-hand side, you can just click the 4 and you notice that the entire row, the fourth row from the top, is highlighted all the way across the workbook. The next word we want to look at is column, and a column is just going to be a vertical array of cells. So notice that the rows are going to be named with numbers and the columns are going to be named with letters. And if you wanted to find a specific cell, let's say you wanted to find D2, you can use this as a grid and you can see that what is in D2 is going to be 1-October, or the 1st of October. But again, to select a column, a vertical array of cells, you can just click on the letter and it will select the entire column all the way through the workbook. So now that we know how to select individual items, let's talk about how you can select multiple items. So you can select multiple cells by clicking on a cell, holding down the left click on the mouse, and then you can drag. And notice we can select anything that is in line with horizontally or vertically. We can select a grouping of cells. But if you want to select things that are not connected directly horizontally or vertically, all in kind of like a box right here, you can instead use the Control button or the Shift button on the keyboard. So for instance, if you want to select, let's say we want to select B3 and D3 and F3, we can click on B3 first, hold Control, click D3, keep holding Control, and click F3. So now these three cells are selected. And we can do this with any number of cells we want, just by clicking on the first, holding Control, and then clicking on each subsequent cell that we want to highlight. We of course can also do this with rows. So if we want to select row 3 and row 8, click on the 3, hold Control, and click on the 8, and both of those rows are now selected. Same thing with column. C, hold Control, and E, for instance, if we want to highlight those, and those will be selected. And you can do this with any number of items. We can also use the Shift button. So the Shift button is going to allow you to select things that are all kind of in a row. So a lot of things you can do with the Shift button you can do by just clicking and dragging. But for example, if we want to select the items inside of column B, the number items, so not the date and not the title of this book, we can click on the top item, hold Shift, and click on the bottom item, and it's going to select all of the items in column B, in this case all of the numeric or the dollar value items in column B. So the next topic that I want to touch on in this video is how to add items, delete items, and copy items. And by items I mean cells or rows or columns. And so let's talk about inserting items or adding items first. So if we wanted to add a row right here, so we're going to add a row, so let's select 3. And what you can do is you can right click this time and go to Insert. And notice what this is going to do. It's going to add a row above what you actually had selected. So we had the mortgage row selected, and then when we clicked Insert, it added a blank row above the mortgage row. And so that would allow you to add some space. So for instance, if you wanted to, of course, have an extra column outside of the different designations of this budget, you can click on column B, right-click, and click Insert, and notice this gives you some space. Something else that I want to show you is you can actually lengthen, or widen, I should say, columns or rows by clicking on the gap right between, in this case, the B and the C, because notice we have some words that go off of this cell. Now, if we wanted to know what those words were, you could click on the cell, and it's going to demonstrate them, or show them right up here at the top. But if we want to see them on the sheet, we can click this space between the B and the C, and hold down the left mouse button, and then we can drag. And you can see, once you let go, it's going to widen the area so that you could read those words. So that's an extra little item. So we have now added a row, and we have added a column, If we want to delete those rows and those columns, we'll delete column B first that we added. You can select B, right-click, and we can click on Delete. And that's just going to undo exactly what we did. We can undo the row 3 blank row that we created, select row 3, right-click, and click Delete, and now we're back where we started. For the final item in this video, I want to show you how you can create or access an additional sheet inside of a workbook. And so again, our workbook is this overall file that we are working within. And if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that we have two sheets. We have part 1 and part 2. So to access the second sheet, you could just click on part 2, and it's going to pull up the other sheet right here. Click part 2, and you can see this is different. So part 1 and part 2, you can see the difference. And so what you can have are different sheets that are going to have different elements that you want to kind of keep separate, but all in the same overall file. And if you want to add an additional sheet, you can just click on this plus button. It says New Sheet if you highlight it, and it's going to create a blank sheet where you can do anything you want. You can also delete this by right-clicking on the sheet that we just created or any sheet you want to delete, and click Delete. And then we're right back where we started.